and then publishing that on the account so that you'll be able to see if something you have missed is there. Hopefully, if the recording doesn't stop. So as I said, like what we'll be dealing with is the procedural clock design. So let me full screen this. So this is inside a cloner in the end, of course, but the thing that we'll be designing is a single clock that moves, that each arm moves correctly in relation to each other. So if this second arm rotates 160 degrees, this minute arm passes one minute here, and 60 minutes make this arm move this much, okay, since it shows an hour. So the overall structure of the node graph is like this. Actually, that is not a very complicated one, but of course, like as you do more and more things get more complicated. So in this one, I'll be showing a time node, which we haven't seen last week, and yeah, we'll be dealing with those new nodes to construct this procedural clock. So let me show you another thing, like these elements of this clock are also completely procedural. So they are done by using different cloners, okay? So these arms and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I need to, okay, so yeah, I'll be showing you a new technique about the pivot points also. So let's dive in to the procedural clock project that we'll be doing this week. And again, this will be in class exercise, so you'll be submitting the Cinema 4D files over the Moodle. So let's start with creating the clock's body. So I'll just start with a simple cylinder. So since I will be looking from this part, front view probably, so I want this cylinder's face to be facing here. So I change the orientation like this, okay, to +Z. So don't, as always, if you have some orientation property like this, try not to rotate the object, since like after some time you'll be, if you want, you'll be seeing easily how much this will be rotated if you need to rotate it. But now, since we can arrange it to a certain viewport, we can do this from the orientation property, okay? So yeah, the rotation segments is too low. I'll just make it larger to make it a rounder one, okay? Yeah, this is a pretty big clock, 50 centimeters, so I won't be changing much of the dimensions. I'll be just trying to keep the default value, so I'm not changing that much, only I changed the thickness of this cylinder. So what I want to do is to place some arms or like indicators that will be showing me the hours, the minutes, and yeah, the hours and minutes, right? So let's start with this one, maybe. And also I'll be changing the material of this. As I've shown you last week, you can click this icon here and double click here to create a material there. And while this is selected, I'll just change the color property from here, okay, and drag this material on top of this object. Okay. So now I have this object here. So what I want to do is to radially place this item here, this box here, which is very thick, this box here over the surface of this cylinder. So what I need to do, the easiest way, should I copy them, rotate them, and try to place them here? By the way, you can duplicate an item on your viewport when you select this, and if you hold your command key or control key on your keyboard, hold command or control and drag that object. Okay, that is duplicated. So I continue holding that and I can duplicate these objects. Okay. Yeah. You can open that material section here by clicking this icon here, which is Material Manager. Okay, when you click that opens. Okay. You couldn't find the colors. Okay, you should double click to this area. When you double click, it creates a material, a default material. And when you select this, and this attributes panel shows the properties of that material, and then in this color part, I can click this icon triangle here, small triangle, so this opens its details, and I can change the material properties of that item. Okay? So I close that material editor again. So yeah, what should I do? Should I try to place them by hand like this? Okay. Cloner, and which mode?
Radial.
Yes, so I only need a single cube. I'll delete these. And I can add a cloner, put this cube inside, and immediately it of course clones them into a grid, since it's the default mode of the cloner. But from there I can go to the radial mode, and as you can see now it is rotating from this perspective. So I need to change the plane of the cloner. So ZY no, XY yes. So this is the plane that I should be dealing with. So I can change the radius, but notice that this is again, if I disable the cloner, you see that the cube is here. But as soon as I enable the cloner dictates the positions of these different cubes, the clones, okay? So if I want to move this cube, I should not select this and try to move that, because it doesn't do anything, okay? But instead of that, I should select the cloner and then move these clones, okay? So that they are visible on the surface of the clock body here. Then I'll play with the radius again, and how many arms, how many indicators we need? 12 hours, right? So as soon as I hit 12, they are equally spread over the surface of the clock in a radial manner. So then now they seem to be too thick, so I can go to the cube and maybe play with this size X value there. I can of course like change these values, but for now I'll be let's say 4 centimeters. Okay, this is this size Z is this thickness of these indicators, so I'll keep it at 1 centimeters. Okay, so this is basically the hours indicator there. So what I need to do is create another cloner that will be used for the minute indicators. So I can select this cloner and hit Command C or Control C and hit Command V to clone, copy and paste that, which is basically copy and paste, of course. So now this cloner is again a duplicate of that one. But what I'll need to do is I'll increase the count, since there are 60 seconds and 60 minutes in an hour. If I hit 60 in the count section, you'll see that there are 60 of them. But this is too thick, so I need to make it a little bit thinner, maybe like this. So as you can see, in a very short time, we have the necessary indicators on the surface of the clock, right? Any problems until now? Any questions? Okay, of course, like I can use, instead of cubes, I can place different objects. I can create a cone, and instead of a cube, I can place a cone there, so that it becomes a much different design, maybe like this. And I'll assign this material to that cone. By the way, I can drag the material on top of an object over the viewport, or I can also use this objects panel here, and I can drag the material on top of that cone, and that will add this material tag there. Okay, so I'll change the radius of it like this, maybe. So yeah, it depends on the design that you want to create. Okay, so I'll return back to the by the way, if you place two different objects inside the clone, for example this cone that I've created, which are these, and the previous cube that I created, it shuffles between those two clones. So now one cube, one cone, one cube, one cone. I'm not sure if I showed you this previously, but you can use multiple objects inside a clone, and in this order it creates the clones according to that order here. So let's try a sphere. I'll decrease the size of it, assign the material so that it becomes visible. So I'll drag that sphere here. So now you see that, let's make the radius 1. So now this is a little bit different. Okay. So yeah, which one do you like? Is this the better one, or let's say, is this better? Which one do you prefer? This one? Okay, no complication. Keep things simple. Okay. So yeah, then I'll increase this radius like this, so that it becomes aligned with this hour indicator. Like I can, okay, it's 46 centimeters, and this is also 46 centimeters. So yeah, until now we have the overall the procedural design of the clock. So I'll add a fillet to this clock body, so that the corners are not that sharp. Like I smooth it like this, maybe. Yeah. Okay. So now what I need is the hour, minutes, and seconds arm, right? So I'll rename this, by the way, hour, let's say indicator hours, indicator minutes, okay, and clock body. So what I'll do is maybe again duplicate this. So Command C, Command V duplicates that object, and I'll change the radius. I'll make it smaller like this, and maybe move it forwards like this, okay, and make it even smaller, and make it black by assigning this material there, so that it becomes the centerpiece. Oops, sorry. It becomes the centerpiece that will hold the minute, second, and hour arms, okay. So then I'll be creating these arms that will be showing us the hour, minutes, and seconds, okay. I like scaled it. I changed the dimensions of this cube that I've created like this, and assigned the material now to make it black. So what do I need to do to make it work like a clock? What this cube should be doing if it's a clock? It should be rotating, right? So I click this cube and go to the coordinates, and I try to find which direction it should be rotating. So these two are not working, so this is working, okay. So but there is a problem. So this doesn't show us any hours, right? Or at least it shows two directions, but I want it to be rotating like this. It should be directing us towards a certain direction, but it should be rotating at the same time, but at this, from this center point, right? So any suggestions how we can do that? Just like make some guesses. Blender users, maybe you should have some suggestions. Parent it to the centerpiece. Okay. Okay, that's a good idea. So let's try. For example, if I make this minute arm, if I put this minute arm to this clock, this cylinder here, which was the, let's call it center. So have I shown you these hierarchies like this, putting objects inside each other? Okay, so this is the moment that it will help you create some hierarchies. So if I drag and drop one object onto another one, so this object becomes the child of this other object here, okay? So what that means is they will have two separate pivot points. This is called the pivot point. And for example, if I can move this minutes arm separately, or if I select this center cylinder and move that, you'll see that they are moving as a group. Since this is the parent, if I move this, the child of it, this minutes arm, follows its parent, okay? So what it allows us to do is, for example, if I rotate this center arm, okay, it's again rotating. But when it becomes functional is, for example, I can move the minutes arm like this, and maybe move this down a little bit like this. Okay, when I select this minutes arm, you see that the center point is here, right? So if I want to rotate that by the rotation tool, it will, oops, sorry. It will rotate in this direction. But if I select this center, you see that this rotation point has been translated to the center of that cylinder there, which means if I rotate this, this object will start to rotate. Okay. Is this clear, or do you have any questions? Okay, so they are in relation, they start to act in relation to each other. So yeah, let's change, make this thinner. Okay, now, so if I rotate this center, it will rotate that. But the problem with that is that I don't want to create many centers on top of each other. So instead of that, I'll drag this out, but create an empty object, which is the null object, which we use, for example, to assign xPresso tags and maybe use it as groups, grouping the other objects there. So this time, when I create this null object, you can see that when I click this, it's located at the center of the viewport, which is the origin point of the scene. So if I drag this minute arm inside the null object and start to rotate the null object, you'll see that it serves the same function. Okay. So let's rename that null to minutes. But since I want to keep this procedural, or let's create the other arms also, then we'll make some then we'll be passing on to the xPresso side. So I just hit Command or Control C and Command Control V to create another one, copy of it. Or another shortcut is, like, for example, you can hold the Command or Control key in your keyboard and click and drag that object to somewhere, so it creates the duplicate of the item, right? So I'll undo that because I don't need 3, but I'll create 3, yeah. Hours, let's say hours arm. Don't forget to rename these, because these objects will be existing in your xPresso environment, so that naming them correctly is very important, otherwise you'll lose track of the objects. Seconds. Okay, so I have 3 different objects now. Hours arm should be shorter and thicker, right? I'll make it shorter and thicker like this. But notice there's a problem. When I change the dimension of this, it starts to be detached from the center of the object. Okay, so we'll deal with that later. So seconds arm will be longer and even thinner like this, and notice that each of them has the problematic offsets from the center. So if I try to rotate the seconds arm there, like rotation B, you'll see that, okay, this can be like this, but if you click the hours and try to rotate, then it is detached, right? It should be connected to this part, but it's not. So when I click this and try to change the dimension, it doesn't automatically stick to this place. So is there a way that you can think of that we can solve this problem?
Hocam, For instance, in After Effects, there's something called snapping,
Okay.
where the object is snapped to like the grid. So maybe there's something similar here.
Okay, good. Nice try. So why how can we snap? How can we define this snapping function? For example, how should it behave? For example, if I change this hours arms size y dimension, this should be like triggering something or defining something so that this kind of moves towards this place, or I don't know, something should happen. There are, like, you can throw up some ideas. Don't be shy, because like I'll be telling you about the solution, but I want you to think first. Any crazy ideas? No? Any logical ideas? Okay, so I'll be showing you a way in a new file. I'll just save this so that if it gets lost. So for example, let's say you have a wall like this and a ground like plane like this, okay? But you want this wall to be like, for example, you define this wall which is like 200 centimeters in height, okay? Let's create a human here. By the way, I just opened this asset browser here by clicking this icon, and I searched human so that all these ready models pop up. So I'll double click to an asset and it's imported there, okay? So I want to create a wall like this, but I want it to be adjustable. So for example, if I change the dimension of this wall 400 centimeters, it should be 400 centimeters, but now some part is going downwards, but I want this to move upwards if I change this value, right? If I shorten it, it's in the air. If I increase this too much, it goes inside the floor. So what I need to do is to create a function that moves this wall upwards according to the size y of this box there, okay? For that, I can create like a new null and create a programming tag xPresso there. But since this is not a complicated thing to do, and this is a function that is only related to the cube, I'll just create a xPresso tag on top of that cube. So right click to that cube and create an xPresso tag. Okay, I'll drag and snap this to the viewport. So now I've opened this tag here. We are seeing that, and I drag that cube there. So what I want to do is make this size y value of that cube to drive some other property of that cube, okay? So since this will be controlling another property, this will be, will this be the should this be the output or input value of that cube? Oops, sorry. If I make it an input, that means that I should connect another property to this value. But I want this to change another value, right? So what I need to do is, for example, if it's, I'll just zero out the coordinates of this, 0, 0, 0. So it's at the center. So what I want to do, for example, if this is 100 centimeters in height, I should move it 50 centimeters, right? To make it stand on the ground. So if it's not 47 but 50, you'll see that, let's see. Yeah, 50 centimeter places it on the ground. So if this is 200 centimeters, like this, then I should be moving this up like, let's see, 100 centimeters. So do you see the relation between the position and size of the cube? What's the relation between them? If the height of this wall is 200 centimeters, the coordinate position y should be 100 centimeters, right? So I'm pushing it 100 centimeters upwards, so that instead of extending to two sides, it seems to be moving automatically to up to the upper direction, so that no matter what I do, it's standing on the ground. Does it make sense, or like, do you have any questions? Please ask if you have questions, because afterwards it will be harder to ask questions. Okay, so this size y is 200 centimeters, coordinates position y is 100 centimeters. So what's the relation between them? So this size y is divided by 2. Can we say that? Okay, so now I understand the relation between these two values. I'll create a function between them. So that will say, if I change this value here, size y value, this should be divided by 2 and then drive this position y value here. Okay? So this might be a little complicated at first, but I think you'll understand. So remember the easy way of putting these values as outputs and inputs. So you can click and drag a value to this part as an output or this part as an input, right? So since I want this value to drive another property, I use this as an output, okay? This size y of this cube. Then this might be a little complicated, or not complicated, but not so logical maybe. So I can drag this cube again here to create another node or box that represents the values of this cube, and then use this coordinate value here, position y, as an input here. Okay? So now these two boxes are representing the same cube, which is this one. But I now have a size y output and a position y output. Then, for example, let's connect these together. So now what will happen is, in the object panel, if I change size y, you'll see that it will be moving this wall upwards. As I increase the dimension of this, it moves even further, but I want it to be kept at the bottom part. So remember the relation between these two values. This should be divided by 2 to define this, right? Now it's like 200 centimeters, 200 centimeters. Since they are directly connected to each other, there is no mathematical operation going on. So I need to add a math operator in between. Okay, I drag and drop that math operator here. What I did was, in the expool here, I clicked search and wrote math, and by default it gives me the math add function. When I click that box, I see that there's a function property here. So instead of add, I'll just select divide, right? So since I want this operation to be between these two, I connect size y and divide it by 2, right? And then connect this to the position y. So now I've created a function like this size y of the cube is divided by 2 in this box, and that value is outputted to the position y of the cube, which makes this like a magically. So when I go to the cube and change the size y value, you see that now it always stays on the ground. It never passes this part, but it's not now a procedural wall, which no matter how high it becomes, it always stays at the ground level. Okay? So this way, like, you can play as many times as you like, and if you need to change some properties or explore different design options in your scene, only thing you'll do is change this value. You don't have to align your wall to the ground all the time if you change something. Okay? So until now, do you have any questions? Please ask now if you have. Does it make sense, or like, do you think that this xPresso thing is a complete nonsense, or what's the use of it, or I don't know? Because you can't think of it like this now because you haven't seen the applications, right?
It seems like it has to be an easy way to do so, but
yeah, I think so. Actually, there in the later versions of Cinema 4D, there are some nodes and operators that have some similar functionality, but before that there was none. So not nodes, but probably operators. Yeah, geomodifiers. There are some similar functions now, but this is the main logic that lets you to create such kind of functions. So if you understand this and the basic logic behind these, you can apply this knowledge to anything, any problem you have. So which brings us to this point in our procedural clock, to the problem that we have here. Like, I change the hours arm size and it extends beyond this clock there. So now I'll apply this knowledge to this. I'll just zero out the rotation of the null objects there, seconds object there, and minute objects. Okay, all are like that. So now, since there are many different objects, I'll create another null and name it control. Sorry. Control. So I'll add the xPresso tag to that. Okay. And I'll drag my minutes arm there. Hours and minutes, hours, and seconds. So try to keep your nodes organized so you don't confuse things afterwards. So as I said, I can drag this hours arm again to here to create another box. and seconds to here, and minutes to here. Okay. I go to the, and let's keep the same hierarchy here. Okay, hours, minutes, seconds, right? Hours, minutes, seconds. So it's an easier way to organize your scene. So I go to the hours arm, and I want the object's size Y to become the output of it. So I'm dragging this to here, and go to the coordinate of that, and drag position Y as the input of this. Okay. And in between, I'll add a math node and change the mode to divide, right? And I connect this to here, connect this to here. And as you can see, as soon as I connected that, it gave an error there. It gave a warning there. Why? Because the second value here, input 2, is 0 by default. So something cannot be divided by 0. It becomes infinite. So instead of 0, I write 2. And now that error is gone. And now my cube is perfectly aligned at the center. Now, so hours arm, I can go here and okay, let's and make this 0. Okay. And if I change this value now, you'll see that it's perfectly aligned at the center of that value. But by the way, don't forget to zero these x value, because like if that's not at 0, you'll see that it will not be at the center of that. Okay. So this value is like back and forth value, so it can be a different thing. So because I want it to be beyond the surface of that sphere. So I've done that connection for hours arm and on xPresso, and I'll do the same for the other values also, but I can hold command or control key on my keyboard and drag this divide object, divide box, to create copies. So by this way, I don't need to drag this add node, add operator, and then change it to like divide and then do the same thing again and again. So I have a predetermined or adjusted operator here, math divide node, and I can copy that, duplicate that by dragging like that. So I'll basically repeat the same process by adding outputs and inputs for minutes arm. Okay, so I go to the object and select size Y, go to the coordinates and position Y, connect these two. So I repeat the same process for the other two arms. Okay. So now, there's a problem here. I don't know why, but they are not at the center. There's some offset here. So these, okay, this cube has position x value not 0 but 0.3. So if I zero that out, you'll see that probably you won't have that problem, but my scene is like that. So they are perfectly aligned to each other. So now I can rotate all these three arms to different rotation values, and they are perfectly rotating at the center, right? Tabii ki olmayacak. Always there can be problems. I'm coming. So but like I'll keep this open, so try to replicate this hierarchy. So I'll pause this. A prop, okay, so is this, let's